It's often said that, in a large organizations, all cards are stacked against innovation, and a lot of companies have, let's say, structures, processes, methods in place in order to deal with radical innovations, but they are, as such, are not always sufficient. And one of the things that people that come up with ideas have to realize is that they sometimes have to fight a social environment or an accepted environment, and coming up with new ideas, coming up with new innovations means that they are breaking with those structures, with those rules, with that cultural accepted environment. And then it doesn't matter what kind of structures or methods you have in place, it will not be accepted anyhow. But these ideas sometimes can be really, really important for organizations, and that's why legitimacy comes into place. Is how can we, even though we know that the idea doesn't really fit with the current situations, how can we find a way to convince others, to mobilize others, to passionate others about the ideas? And that's where legitimacy comes into place. Not everybody in the organization thinks alike, because the whole organization is focused about doing what we do better. So what is our current business, and how can we do things better with our current business? This is sometimes also what we refer to as the large company syndrome. So we have a battle to fight. So don't come up with new ideas on how to win the battle or how to win the war, but we are now working on fighting this particular battle. And in those kind of situations, I think legitimacy, or trying to develop legitimacy for your ideas, becomes a very important part, because then it's about mobilizing others, convincing others that this is a good idea. Yes, we should do this. And both, I think, from a research perspective, but also, let's say, from an individual perspective, I think this is an interesting area where people should or could spend more attention to. It's okay, what can we do? What actions can we take? I don't think that people per se are missing anything. I think that, everybody is creative in its own specific rights. I mean, it comes a little bit back on how did we define creativity. Is it, let's say, the amount of ideas that we actually come up with? Is it 100, 1,000? Are you then creative? Or actually creative that you come up with one very, very good idea? So I don't think that people per se are missing anything. I think it's more about how companies think about creativity. Because all organizations talk about, a creative climate, we have to have a culture towards innovation. But what they really don't spend a lot of attention to is, okay, but how can we educate? How can we train? How can we support the people working for us? And for me, creativity and innovations are two different sides of the same coin. I think you need creativity to have innovations, and innovations can't do without creativity. So I think creativity is the starting point of any innovation that happens, or any innovation journey that you go through. So for me, that is the link between creativity and innovation. I think that every person is creative by itself. So if an organization has a creativity workshop or creativity techniques, I think they will get a lot of creative ideas. And I think the companies are also good, and let's say in the innovation process, they have their structures, they have their milestones, they have their different stages as such. I think the most difficult part is, how do we turn an idea into an innovation? How do we manage that transition between, okay, now we come up with 100 ideas, how do we actually turn that into, or push it into the innovation process? One of the things that I always also find, that I think it also has a lot to do with, let's say, how companies reward and recognize. I think that plays a very important part as well, because a lot of the rewarding systems are based on, okay, improving productivity, or better quality, so doing what we do better, and not so much on the innovation side. And it has more to do with the focus of the companies. They are so focused on the current state, whereas they kind of like filter out and leave out a lot of the radical type of innovations. So the focus is now on, okay, improving, because that's part of how we get rewarded in the end of the year, how we are being recognized for the work that we actually do. And nobody really recognizes us for, okay, we came up new great idea that will give us a competitive advantage in the next 5 years.
Yeah.